Hi and welcome back to the channel. I just want to point out that Shelley is alive and well.
Just about.
And I would like to point out also that whilst I said I had it as well, Shelley had a dose. I was just a sniffle. Okay, so
Yeah.
but obviously it's far worse for
Gary
men.
was trying to cash in on the fact that I was ill.
Yeah.
Getting sympathy for him with his non-man flu.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm blaming all the rental searches that we've been doing.
Yeah.
Because I've been shaking so many hands.
You've done a lot, haven't you?
So I think I've put myself in a disease zone somewhere.
Yeah, so thanks for all your messages on that anyway.
Thank you.
Anyway, so this week, let's talk about this week. So this week it's a two-part video, okay, and this is the first part. And it's about your biggest fears moving to Portugal. And part one, which we're doing today, is about wildfires and weather stroke nature. Okay.
Very appropriate.
Very appropriate. So that's what it's about this week, yes.
Yeah, so we compiled a list basically of the top fears that people have in order. And that's from places like Reddit, Facebook groups, you know, all the online forums to actually work out what are the things that people are really, you know, fearful of before they come here. And hopefully we'll cover these in this two-part series, so stay tuned, and hopefully we will help you to understand each of those ones. So here is the list. There's nothing surprising, but in first place, we can definitely validate this one. We've had a lot of pain on this. Bureaucracy and immigration. That's number one. Number two, learning the language.
See?
Yep, totally understand that one. Three, very appropriately, wildfires.
Today. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. 4, politics and the far right, Chega, whatever you call them. A lot of people are fearful of that. 5, cost of living, money anxiety, and let's throw in tax to that list. Definitely be fearful of taxes.
Great subject.
So, but you know, actually that one's coming up the ranks because cost of living, you know, we've talked about this a lot. Portugal was seen as a cheap country and it's not cheap anymore. So we'll talk about that. 6, getting ripped off and scams. We are going to do a separate video on this in a few weeks' time, but that is a big fear, quite rightly. 7, healthcare and aging.
Aging?
Yeah, I mean,
what's that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm fearful of aging, but I'm not sure I can change that.
I'm not sure that's Portugal related.
I think it's growing old in Portugal, you know, care homes, what happens when you get to that point. 8, weather, climate and nature. So
today again,
yeah, so that's one we'll cover today. Loneliness and integration was 9, and that one is interesting. And 10, driving. Gary's favourite, driving and safety.
Yes.
So, does this list surprise you?
So, as we said this week, part 1, we're going to talk about wildfires. We're going to talk about weather, climate and nature. And so with wildfires, obviously in Portugal, every summer we see the headlines, Portugal on fire. This year has been no different at all. In fact, this year you could say that we've seen some of the worst individual fires, wildfires in living memory. And that's I say worst, it's very, very hard to define exactly what worst is, but in terms of the amount of land that has caught fire, the acreage, it's been one fire in particular, the Piódão fire, was a massive area that in the end went all the way across towards Castelo Branco, Fundão, which is a long way from where
Yeah.
it started. So, you know, worse could also be defined also in how it affects people and their lives. And
Yeah.
that is something which is really, really important with the wildfires.
Yeah. So today we're going to actually go and have a look, try and take you in you know, an empathetic way, take you with us firsthand to go and see some of these areas that have been affected. And we're going to show you what it really looks like, because that will help people a lot, I think, in terms of understanding when you see those headlines, what is the reality of it and what's changed. Because obviously there was a massive fire in 2017, and many friends of ours remember that fire because they were here and they got impacted by it. So we're going to show what's changed since 2017, and most importantly, what's important for you if you're thinking about living here.
Okay, so should we get going then?
Let's get going. And this is one of the most beautiful parts of central Portugal. We were going to do a video not that long ago on, you know, the beauty of central Portugal. And this would have been definitely one of the areas that we would have filmed.
It's, I think we saw lost TV footage as well, where they were fighting the fire in the village of Avo itself, because it had reached the village, and you start to get a sense of just really the fire was all around them, and
it must have been terrifying, right?
Absolutely horrific. Yeah.
I mean, the vegetation, obviously, all of this grows back incredibly quickly, but I'm afraid your memory and your fire memory does not illuminate quite as quick. Look round. Is that the village down there?
This is
the village across, on the right here? Yeah. Gosh, that is a lot, isn't it? Look, it goes right beyond. Right over there. I mean, as far as the eye can see, we can't really get a full sense of it. Oh.
Yes, so the 2025 wildfires, I think the total was around 274,000 hectares has been burnt in total. Obviously, that figure may change, but that equates to approximately 3% of Portuguese mainland territory, and that is almost 3 times what the yearly average is as well for wildfires.
Yeah. And one individual fire alone near, sorry if I don't say this right, Piódão, became the largest in Portuguese history. That fire alone, that proportion of that fire destroyed over 64,000 hectares of land.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the scale. Actually, it's obviously that is bigger than some entire districts. And I'd like to give you some perspective here because a friend of ours posted something saying about 70,000 hectares. So roughly, the number that Shelley gave there. To give you a sense of what that equates to, in terms of football pitches, that is over 98,000 football pitches. So that is a huge, huge area, and that really does give some perspective on the size of some of these fires. And as far as we know, and these numbers can change, it depends on the source. It's quite important as well, but there have been 4 deaths reported from this year's fires.
And we haven't looked at those updated numbers for a couple of weeks.
So it may well have
more.
changed, but 4 deaths have been reported, which are directly as a consequence of these fires. And there's been a dozen primary residences destroyed, because obviously when the fire service, when they do their work, their number one priority is to protect people and property and residences, but there's still been those 12 primary residences destroyed.
I'm surprised that that number's not higher, because today when we look at the footage and look at the areas, some of these villages have been completely surrounded by fire.
It is amazing.
And how more houses haven't burned, I'm sort of amazed by that.
Yeah. And then obviously going on from there, there's all the unreported statistics as well. And something that's close to our heart is the animal welfare. And you've got to imagine the amount of wildlife that gets displaced or destroyed because of these wildfires. And there just really aren't any statistics for that, which is such a shame, because that would really give a much better idea of what the damage is and the consequences. So anyway, so there were a couple of TV there's a bit of TV coverage, and there were a couple of pieces that really stood out for us. So we'll take a look at those. Yeah.
Não temos tempo! Não, deixamos fora!
Temíamos, e isto era aquilo que temíamos, e temos estado toda a tarde a avisar. E isto era aquilo que temíamos, e estamos toda a tarde a avisar. E acho que há algo que está a falhar para chegarmos a este ponto, é passar o fogo para a outra vertente e ficar descontrolado. Nós estamos toda a tarde a avisar sobre esta merda.
Yes, that's quite harrowing, that lady being dragged away there. That is probably, that land is everything. Everything she's got. It's probably her food source. It's probably all the land she owns. And so, you know, you see her being torn away from it.
No backup plan.
No, it's harrowing. Yeah.
So there was another story that my friend told me about, because this guy actually lives near her village, and his name was Pedro. And basically his entire house, all his possessions, everything went. Now, Pedro's a sheep farmer. He grows his own feed. So he's got a complete self-sufficient ecosystem.
Yeah.
And he basically trusted his animals to use their animal instincts to save themselves. So he freed all of his sheep and all of his animals.
Yeah.
But he lost everything else, all the food, all the feed, everything. And one of those miracles, I guess, that happens in these situations is that one of his animals was a dog that had just given birth to puppies, and she took the puppies and she took them to the entrance to a mine.
Oh, wow.
And so they're like amazing, like they were safe and they were found, and there's an organisation, unfortunately, called the IRA, which is the Rescue and Prevention, I think, let me just check, Animal Rescue and Intervention Group. And they actually found that the dog with her puppy's safe, and they said it was an absolute miracle. But the story of Pedro really touched their hearts, because that is his all. That's his everything. He doesn't have a job, a pension, something to fall back on. So they actually did a social media campaign for him, and they raised over 70,000 euros, and that was amazing, because they were able to deliver him straight away a modular cabin for him to live in, and most importantly, get feed for his sheep. So that was amazing. But the stark reality is that for many Portuguese who are living in stone houses, living off the land and living off, with their animals, they don't have any savings, they don't have any insurance, they don't have any fallback plan, and they've got no way to rebuild. Their story is very different.
And that is really relevant, because these are the people that are impacted by it, the Portuguese communities. And as we say, as you've just said there, you've got the foreign, especially, there's a lot of the off-gridders who do have those fallbacks, the insurance, the family savings, or whatever it is.
Digital jobs.
So it might seem that they're vulnerable, but they've got a plan B, they've got something to fall back on. And a lot of these people can just jump on a ferry and get back to the UK or wherever it is, or drive to wherever they come from, and they can forget it. But these Portuguese people, they don't have that.
No.
Okay, so there was a massive fire, as we've mentioned before, in 2017, and since then, a lot of the local, what do you call them, the local authorities and the government, etc. They've taken many steps to try and address the problems that they identified in those 2017 fires. So there's been a lot of positive change, but there are also still a lot of cracks in there. And I think recently, I'm just checking my notes here, because it was Fundale, the mayor of Fundale was on TV, and he was talking about the fact that he wanted air support at 8 a.m. in the morning, and by 10:30 nothing had arrived. And of course, you can imagine the fire has then spread, and it has got worse. And then if we look at the footage that we've just looked at in Oliveira do Hospital, that was pretty much the same thing, where they were screaming out for the help.
Oh, he was so angry.
He was very, very angry, that mayor, and he just wasn't getting the help that they needed to combat it. Yeah,
exactly. But Portugal has invested heavily. If you believe the kind of news stories, there's new regional command centres, there's better equipped firefighters, more aerial support, and there's even like high-tech mapping systems that can now track fires in real time. And we've certainly seen a change in our area, haven't we? Because since we moved here, really, we walk our dogs in the forest every morning. Nothing could really change there. But then we noticed in the last 6 months,
a lot more clear.
All the paths have been cleared, the main roads, so that the fire services can get through. A lot more chopping down has been in play, taking down of areas. So, if we were to go by our experience, we have seen some of those changes.
Yeah, and I think that also there's a responsibility of the locals, the people in the villages as well, and I think that's probably taken a bit more seriously now, in that they have to clear. I think it's like 50 metres around their properties, which is why if you drive through in the early spring and into summer through lots of villages,
the drumbeat of central Portugal, isn't it?
You'll just hear streamers going everywhere, and it's because they're clearing land and making sure there's no dead vegetation, which can easily catch fire, of course.
But they are on it now, aren't they, in terms of finding people?
I think it's better. Yes, much better. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, some areas are trialling controlled burns, and they're trialling grazing herds to reduce like fuel loads and stuff like that. So there has been progress, but the government was put under an awful lot of pressure for these last big fires, Because the Prime Minister decided to be on holiday, or he was on holiday.
He was in the
Nothing
Algarve,
wrong
wasn't
with
he?
being on holiday in the
No,
Algarve, okay?
no,
You're
no.
allowed a holiday. But just like in the UK, and I'm sure in the US, you know, if there is a really, really major incident, you kind of stop your holiday, don't you? And you
Yeah.
go into command and control. And he didn't. So he came under an awful lot of pressure for that. And since then, actually, they've announced a big number of measures, financial aid, rebuilding for homes. So I think they've had to kind of come back very quickly with a plan to actually help people.
He's trying to regain some ground.
Yes, I think he probably needed to. So, yeah.
Now, this is where it gets a little bit controversial. Not every fire that happens in Portugal is down to heat waves or lightning.
Yeah, so the statistics say, official statistics, I might add, say that there are about 14% of fires are actually confirmed arson, and another 19% on top of that are caused by the misuse of fire, okay? But some studies put that figure much, much higher, even suggesting that over half of the burned area in the last decade has been deliberate.
Yeah, and that does fuel quite a lot of conspiracy theories as well. And there are different conspiracy
lots of
theories that
those.
come out that we hear about. We hear about land speculation,
Mining,
reforestation contracts. Yeah, mining lithium, exactly.
the contracts for the helicopters and the trucks.
And this is a bit of a sick one, but just pure vandalism, just for the sheer hell of it, you know, proper fire start stuff. So whatever the truth, the numbers don't really lie. A huge chunk of Portugal's fires are started by people. And the question is, why?
So we had fires last year that affected actually more so where our friends lived. But we could smell, the burning. And there is like a fire app, isn't there, called Fogos, which gives you an idea of where the fires are, but it can be up to 6 hours out of date. So I woke up, Gary was over in the UK, and I woke up to the smell actually in my bedroom of smoke. So I was sort of panicking, looking out the window and trying to get information, but everything looked fine where we were. It was just the smell traveling. But our friends sent us some footage. They were literally on fire watch all night because they could clearly see. That was Nilas, that fire, a really big fire near them. They could clearly see that fire, and they were obviously terrified that it was getting closer to them. Those same fires, of course, I had to pick Gary up from the airport because he said he was in the UK, and I actually had to drive through Aveiro on the way to Porto to pick Gary up, and that was another big area that was affected by the fires.
Yeah, it was,
and literally you had to drive. Most of it was cleared for opening, just in case anyone, you were allowed to drive on it, but either side there were flames. And
which is just weird,
which
yeah.
was quite.
Well, I know, Shelley. I remember you.
Some footage.
She was ringing me. I'm waiting for her to pick me up,
panicking.
and she's ringing me, and she's like,
Yeah.
"Wow, there's fires everywhere." And
I didn't like it. It was very disconcerting. So there was a lot of smoke. So that's probably the nearest that we've been affected. Thank God, our area. Gosh, touch wood, Shelley. Our area has never been affected to our knowledge.
No, and I think one thing to bear in mind here is if you choose, or when you choose to live in Portugal, then you kind of, especially in the centre and the north, where most of the fires are year on year.
Not all, but most.
Then that fire risk you've got to accept as part of what you need to put it into your thought process when you're moving, because if it's something that's a big issue for you, then obviously you need to take this into account.
Yeah.
Now, to be honest, in the years that we've been here, and we know from people that have been here many more years, fire risk is part of living here. It's part of the risk of being here, and that's the same in many parts of the world. We talk about California or Australian wildfires, etc., etc. The list goes, and France this year as well. Yeah, so it goes on and on. So it's here. It's I don't know. Is there anywhere in the world that you can particularly call? Probably the UK. I'm not sure we get any wildfires.
I don't know. Actually, I did
well,
see a report.
They might have a couple.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of places that aren't safe, and we're coming on to weather in a bit, and global warming, climate change. Who knows? There could be more there. So it is anywhere really, really safe. But clearly, obviously, in some areas, and that's why we say the centre and the north in Portugal. And in the south, there's less to burn, and it doesn't mean they don't have wildfires. It just means that there is less to burn, so there's less of an issue. So if you move here, and especially if you're thinking about rural areas, then this is something you need to consider.
So, as we said, you've got to accept that if you're going to move to the areas, particularly the parts of Portugal we talked about, you have to think about how you mitigate that risk. And we knew in a rural area where we've got forests all around us, we knew there would be a risk of fire. So when we bought our house, or before we bought our house, we assessed that fire risk. Yeah. We looked at our house, we looked at the fact that we knew we had a fire break all the way around the house because there was road all the way around. We looked at the village and the roads around the village, the escape routes, the potential areas where fire could come in, the town, the systems in place. We checked to see if we could get that house insured for fire before we bought it, because if it was in an area where they were like, you got no chance of getting fire insurance here, then that would be crazy for us. So we assessed that. We looked at the general upkeep of the towns, the forests, things like that. Important. And basically that's all we can do, right? It was giving us the best case scenario is that it would be highly unlikely our house would burn. I say highly unlikely. And we knew that area had a good escape plan, etc. So we decided that we were accepting the risk.
Yes. But
it's the best word.
Yeah. But, that romantic, I don't know, wood hut or whatever it is in the middle of a forest. And we did look at a few which when we look back on reflection, we think, well, that was,
oh my gosh,
avoided. And we've even seen some of the areas where been affected by fires as well, quite seriously. Yeah. So we saw a few. You always know they're going to be a high risk purchase if you do something like that. And as foreigners coming to Portugal, if you live somewhere like that, then you are accepting that is the risk. That you accept the risk, and remember, you have a choice as well.
Yeah,
so
you don't have to
you don't have to buy, you don't have to live there. So what we have to think of here is that many of the Portuguese, the properties that they're living in, that this is properties that they've inherited through generations of their family. And that is where they live. They don't have a choice. They can't go out and buy a place in a safer area, etc. And quite often they can't get the insurance for it as well. So they don't have a choice. And so, when we look at foreigners moving to Portugal, and some of them are affected by this, then we do empathise with their situation.
We do.
But we probably feel slightly differently about the foreigners that move into high-risk areas than we do the Portuguese people who are stuck in those areas. I think that's probably the fairest way to put it. So we empathise with the situation, that they might have some loss, but they understand the risk when they chose to live in that location. And so that's quite important.
Well, you'd like to think that they would understand the risk when they chose to live in that location.
And so
I can't believe anyone's that naive.
No, exactly. So the bottom line is, if you choose to live in a place like that, then you have to accept the risk.
Yeah. So if you choose to live in those zones, think about fire breaks. When you're looking to buy or rent, have a look around at the village, the towns, where the roads are. Think about insurance. You can check insurance before you buy somewhere. And think about your escape plan. Think about, where would you go? What would you do? How rural are you? Can you get to a town quite quickly if there was an emergency? Does that village or town have a meeting point? We know where our meeting points are for our village, for our town. So you can do that. And there's lots of guidance on Safe Communities Portugal, which I'll put a link to either on the screen or in the notes. And they have excellent information about fire risk, what to do in the event of a fire. And your local community pages, your Junta de Freguesia, that's like your local council, they will have information on fire. So don't be put off, and we want to make this really clear today. Don't be put off. It's just the same as anything else about moving to Portugal. Be prepared and understand the risks.
Okay, so that's enough about wildfires for the moment. Let's get on to weather, climate, and nature. Now, Portugal is quite a small country, but for the purposes of this, what we'll do is we'll split it into 3 main zones. So you've got the north and central zone, which incorporates Porto, Coimbra, the Silver Coast. Now that tends to be cooler, wetter, and greener. Winters can be damp there. Summers can still hit the high 30s, of course, especially as you move
early
inland.
40s this year for us.
Absolutely. But you will get more cloud and rain than the Algarve, which leads us on to the next region, which is the south, and we'll say that is the Algarve and the Alentejo region. So it's hotter, drier, and sunnier. The Algarve gets over 300 days of sunshine a year, and inland Alentejo is absolutely baking in the summer. Definitely over 40 degrees in that area. That is not unusual at all to be into the 40s. Droughts are common, and water
good wines. That's why the wines are so good from the Alentejo.
Although droughts are common,
they're our favourites.
And water management is essential in those areas. The third region is not the mainland, is the island. So we're talking about Madeira and the Azores. Madeira. Someone will tell me off for doing it wrong anyway. And the Azores, subtropical, lush with vegetation, but it has changeable weather. 4 seasons is definitely a thing, and 4 seasons in one day would not be unusual.
No.
So the Silver Coast, just to be clear, that is not like the Algarve. People think that it is because it's by the sea, but you've got the Atlantic rollers coming in and hitting it hard because it's exposed westerly facing, whereas the Algarve region is still Atlantic, but it's south facing, so it's a
Yeah.
little bit more respectable there. It does get heat waves, but you do, as with most places on
Yeah.
the Atlantic, you will get wind and you
Yeah.
will get a sea
I was there a
mist.
few weeks ago, and that wind is ferocious.
Very
And it was a
feisty.
lovely day, but
Yeah.
you know, it's quite ferocious.
Yeah.
So yeah, so weather is one of the most misunderstood things that we actually, even from talking to clients,
Yeah.
that we find weather is definitely one of the most misunderstood
And
things.
friends and family as
And friends and family, yeah, coming
Everyone
over.
thinks it's like the Algarve everywhere. Nope.
Yeah, so people panic about the north quite a lot. We've spoke to clients who are like, oh my God, but it's so much rain there.
They think it
There's
rains all the time.
Rain.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, it does rain, okay? But it doesn't rain all the time. And that's why all the centre and the north are so green and they are so lush, is because they get rain. But we live in the centre, as you know, and yes, we have two months of rain, maybe 3, and
Yeah,
that
ish.
can be 40 days and 40 nights biblical rain, and
Yeah.
then rain on different days.
Yeah.
It changes, right? But it's definitely what we would call rainy season. But our summers are dry and warm. We're almost guaranteed 12, 14, 16 weeks of sunshine with no rain at all.
Yeah.
And that's completely different to the UK, isn't it? Where, you know, you
Just
could
a
have
tad.
summer. You could never say it's summer. It's not, you know, we're going to have 6 weeks where
No.
there's no rain.
It might be summer today,
It
but
might
it
be
could
summer.
be back to winter tomorrow.
It could.
Yeah, true. But like everywhere, Portugal, I think is feeling the effects of climate change
Yes.
as well. We've certainly, what the feedback that we get, obviously we've only been here a couple of years and it's been very, very hot in the summer with the heat waves. But people are saying the heat waves are getting longer.
Oh, we've lived full time for a couple of years.
Lived full time for a couple of years, but they're saying the heat waves are getting longer and they're getting hotter as well. And that means that those
Well, it did
wildfires
this
that we're
year,
talking
didn't it?
about, that can obviously increase the intensity of them, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. And then winters in the north and the centre, they're saying, are a little bit more stormier, so more wind and a little bit more damp and wet as
Yeah.
well.
And as I said, we've really felt it, haven't we?
Mm.
This summer has been that, you know, like we can go out now in quite high temperatures and do the garden and do the things that we need to do. We got quite used to going out in mid-30s and
I was going to say 32 degrees
Yeah,
now.
like, not
But
really.
in the UK, I'd never have done that.
God
yeah.
no.
But
It
32
doesn't
degrees, I
bother
call
us.
it. Yeah.
But this summer we have been beaten back into the house a bit by some of the heat days that we've had.
Yeah.
So we can already see some of that climate change.
The impact
and
of it,
then
yeah.
we went from that dead heat, really strong heat, to literally autumn. Like a week ago,
Yeah.
maybe 10 days ago, autumn came, and it was like, hang on, we're at the end of August. Why have we got autumn weather? So yeah, there's no pattern that we can certainly really identify right now.
No, but let's just bring ourselves back to earth here and just know that Portugal has probably got one of the more stable climates of countries within Europe.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
actually.
when you said you get that prolonged period, you know, when it's summer, it is summer.
Yeah.
And you will get summer weather. So, you know, it is one of the reasons, I guess, why people move here, because of that stability. Yeah.
So, do we get hurricanes? No, not really. We might get the tail end of, you know, a weather pattern where we get kind of very intense wind, don't we? At times, you know, we've had furniture around the swimming pool going for a little.
It's like the old thing where they used to say with the wheelie bin, oh, we've got really bad weather, really bad wind, and the wheelie bin's fallen over. It's a bit like that, really.
But
Isn't it?
yeah, it is. But you know, compared to places like the US, the Caribbean, no, we get nothing of that level.
Now I'm going to talk about earthquakes, and before I mention the important stuff about earthquakes, we
You're not going to do a science lesson, are
No,
you?
I'm not. I won't go on for hours. But we did experience an earthquake here I can't remember. Was it this year or was it last year?
I think it was
can't remember.
last year.
I think it was last year.
Yeah.
So I think one of the dogs barked in the middle of the night, and I awoke and I heard a noise, and it was one of those noises you just couldn't work out what it was. The earth didn't move for me or anything like that. It was a bit of something and nothing. And when I woke up in the morning, I saw that we'd had an earthquake. And I remember the time because I'd looked at the clock when I woke up, and it was exactly that time. So that's my first experience at 21 plus 35 years of an earthquake. Anyway, so earthquakes in Portugal. So Portugal, there's a fault line which lies just off the coast near Lisbon, and that is the African plate meeting the Eurasian plate. So I said I'm not going to do a science lesson.
No.
But anyway, so back in 1755, so a little bit before our time, there was a very, very big earthquake, which the epicenter was near to Lisbon or in Lisbon, and that caused a lot of damage, destruction, and death. So the potential is there because you got those two plates.
In there, right?
Yeah, exactly. The plates are there, but because of modern technology and science, etc., then obviously people are going to get big warnings if anything like that is likely to happen. So the most likely thing that you're going to experience on the earthquake front are going to be minor tremors, if that.
So it's the same with flooding, you know, sometimes, especially in like low-lying city areas in winter, you might get some flooding, but again, it's quite localized. It's not countrywide like some of the stuff we saw from Spain quite a lot, don't we? About
with the flash floods and things like that.
We haven't seen any of those.
No, not really. So the reality is you will have hot summers here in Portugal. You'll have some wet winters, or certainly periods of wetness during the winters, and you might have the occasional storm, i.e. a bit of wind. But I'd say, based on this conversation, the main natural risk here is probably from fires and those wildfires that we talked about, not hurricanes, not earthquakes. Of course, there are no guarantees, but they're not really
someone,
things.
Didn't we, who thought hurricanes were in Figueira da Foz? That Figueira da Foz was an area for hurricanes.
Or was it an area for earthquakes?
Or one of those.
I think it was earthquakes. Someone was worried that there was going to be an issue with earthquakes in those areas. I mean, you can be anywhere on the planet and you can be affected by an earthquake. Yeah. So, but generally speaking, no, it's not. So, what we're saying is, not really things to be fearful of any more than anything else in this world that we live in these days. And certainly, I don't think you need to be any more fearful in Portugal than anywhere else.
No, absolutely not. And with a little bit of planning, you know, proper insulation in your house, in your homes, choosing your region carefully, looking at your risk, being aware of stuff. It's still one of the best climates in Europe for a really good quality of life. Just got to do your planning.
Absolutely. And so if you're worried about Portugal's climate, then probably the best thing you can do is to come to Portugal and spend some time here. And if you can do a couple of trips, then do them in different seasons.
Especially weather, right?
Yes, because you are really going to get a flavour of what it's about then.
Yeah.
And I would say most people would probably be pleasantly surprised based on what they read.
Yeah.
I'd say the biggest thing you've got to get used to is during the winter is you've got to wear your coat indoors, haven't you? That is just a joke. But just a point that some houses don't have very good heating.
Actually, there are people that wear coats.
Oh, dear. What? Anyway, so that is it for this week. We wanted to give a really good overview of those items there. Remember, this is part one of a two-part series, and we have got more coming next week, as we mentioned earlier in the video.
Next week, Shager.
Taxes,
politics,
and bureaucracy.
Actually, that'll be a really good one.
All the rest. So do tune in for that. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all our subscribers, and thank you for liking and commenting on previous ones. Please do the same for this one. As I always say, it really does help.
It helps.
Massively, yes. And we want to get this out to as many people as possible, obviously. So that's it for this week. So thank you very much. We'll see you next time, and ta-ra for now.
Ta-ra for now.